Hey guys, tonight we slip into the shadowed halls of Wittenberg's castle, where the air hums with the scent of ink and treachery, and John Frederick I, Elector of Saxony, paces beneath a chandelier's flickering glow. His broad shoulders, clad in russet velvet, carry the weight of a crumbling empire, and you sense a storm brewing behind his steady gaze. A sealed letter lies on a table, its wax stamp glinting like a traitor's eye. Could it be from his cousin Maurice, whose loyalty is as fleeting as moonlight? You'd last 5 minutes in this den of noble schemes before tripping over a whispered plot. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Whisper in the comments where you're drifting off from and the hour on your clock. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's drift into tonight's shadowy tale together. You glide through the stone corridors of Wittenberg's castle, the year 1547, just after the Battle of Mühlberg, where John Frederick's world began to unravel. The air is heavy with the musty tang of old tapestries, their threads woven with Saxon lions and faded gold, swaying as if whispering secrets of their own. Torches cast long shadows, dancing like specters across the walls, and you catch the faint clink of goblets from a distant hall, where nobles drown their fears in wine. John Frederick, known as the Magnanimous for his generous heart, stands alone in a chamber, his hand resting on a table strewn with maps and broken quills. His Lutheran faith, bold and unyielding, has made him a champion of the Reformation, but also a target for the Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V. You sense the weight of betrayal here, like a chill that lingers despite the fire crackling in the hearth. The room is a portrait of faded grandeur, its oak panels carved with heraldic shields, though some are chipped, as if mirroring Saxony's fractured fortunes. A silver candelabrum flickers, casting light on a velvet curtain in deep indigo, behind which you glimpse a scribe scribbling furiously. Is he recording John Frederick's orders, or a traitor's scheme? The elector's doublet, embroidered with crimson threads, catches the glow, but you notice a tear at the sleeve, a small sign of the chaos that's come. These nobles, you think with a chuckle, dressed like kings even when their crowns are slipping. A wicker basket by the door holds crumpled letters, their wax seals broken, and you wonder if one bears the mark of Maurice, John Frederick's cousin, whose ambition turned kin into foe. The historical nugget here is a bitter one. In 1547, John Frederick led the Schmalkaldic League, a Protestant alliance against Charles V's Catholic Empire, only to be betrayed by his cousin, Maurice of Saxony. At the Battle of Mühlberg, Maurice, promised the electoral title by Charles, switched sides, leading to John Frederick's crushing defeat. You can almost hear the clash of pikes and the thunder of hooves, can't you? This betrayal cost John Frederick his title as elector, his lands, and his freedom, as he was captured and sentenced to death, though later spared. The sting of family turning traitor is a wound deeper than any sword, and you sense its echo in the quiet of this chamber. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, picture this. John Frederick, despite the chaos of war, insisted on commissioning portraits by Lucas Cranach the Elder, depicting him as a steadfast Lutheran hero. These paintings, with their bold strokes and somber gazes, were sent to allies as if to say, "I'm still here." Imagine Cranach, paintbrush in hand, grumbling about deadlines while cannon fire echoed in the distance. You have to laugh. Nobles like John Frederick spent gold on their image when they could have bought a few more soldiers. It's the kind of folly that makes you glad you're just a visitor, drifting through this dreamlike scene without a bill to pay. You move closer, your shadow blending with the candlelight's flicker. A noble in a teal cloak slips through the room, his eyes darting to a sealed letter on the table. You catch a whiff of his spiced cologne, masking a hint of sweat. Nervous, perhaps? The letter, stamped with a crimson lion, could be from Maurice, whose alliance with Charles V shattered John Frederick's hopes. The elector's face, broad and weathered, betrays no fear, but his fingers tighten around a goblet, as if gripping his fading power. A page scurries past, nearly dropping a bronze ink pot, and you stifle a chuckle. Poor lad, dodging plots and pots with equal clumsiness. The room hums with tension, the scent of wax and parchment thick, as if the air itself holds the weight of betrayal. The scholarly riddle that lingers is a thorny one. Was John Frederick's unyielding faith a mark of heroism or a fatal flaw? Historians debate whether his refusal to compromise with Charles V strengthened the Protestant cause or doomed his own rule. Some see him as a martyr, standing firm for Lutheranism. Others argue his stubbornness invited Maurice's betrayal, costing Saxony its power. You feel the questions chill as you watch John Frederick pace, his boots echoing on the stone floor. If you were his advisor, would you urge him to bend, or to stand tall and risk it all? As you drift through the chamber, the fire's glow softens, its crackle blending with the rustle of the velvet curtain. A tapestry on the wall depicts a hunt, its lions staring out as if judging the room's schemes. You smile at the thought of nobles weaving such grand symbols while their plans unraveled. Typical, isn't it? They'd rather chase glory than sense. The scribe pauses, his quill hovering, and you wonder if he's writing a plea to allies or a record of lost hopes. John Frederick glances at the letter, his jaw tightening, and you recall the crimson wax seal from that betrothal chamber of Maximilian I's era. A different court, a different betrayal, yet the same shadow of ambition. The air grows heavier now, the scent of incense curling like a whispered warning. You glide toward the door, passing a guard in polished armor, his eyes half closed as if lulled by the castle's quiet. You can't help but laugh softly. Imagine guarding a prince when the real threat is a cousin's pen. The corridor beyond is dark, its torches dim, but you catch a final glimpse of John Frederick, his silhouette framed by candlelight, a man whose generosity couldn't shield him from treachery. The lion on the tapestry seems to watch you leave, its gaze a reminder of the fragility of loyalty. As you slip into the night, the stars above Wittenberg glitter faintly, and the scent of parchment fades, leaving only the echo of a noble's fall. You stand on a fog-shrouded hill overlooking the Elbe River, the air sharp with the scent of damp earth and iron, as the dawn of April 24th, 1547, breaks over the battlefield of Mühlberg. John Frederick I, Elector of Saxony, looms before you, his broad frame clad in a russet breastplate, a fresh scar jagged across his cheek like a map of his defeat. The clash of steel and the cries of men echo faintly, fading into the mist, but you feel the weight of a battle lost, not just to Emperor Charles V, but to the betrayal of John Frederick's cousin, Maurice, whose ambition turned the tide. The ground is churned to mud, strewn with broken pikes and tattered banners, and you can't help but smile wryly. These nobles fought for glory, but their fields look like they hosted a very bad party. The battlefield stretches before you, a grim canvas of chaos, its colors muted by the fog. Saffron streaks of sunrise barely pierce the haze. John Frederick's horse stamps restlessly, its breath clouding the chill air, and you notice the elector's hand gripping his sword hilt, knuckles white beneath his gauntlet. His scar, still raw from a Spanish blade, catches the light, a permanent reminder of the day his dreams of a Protestant empire crumbled. You hear the distant clatter of a squire hauling a wicker basket of arrows, his face pale with exhaustion, and the low moan of a war horn, like a lament for Saxony's lost power. These nobles, you think with a chuckle, spent gold on armor as if it could shield them from fate. Imagine the armorer's bill. The historical nugget here is a pivotal one. The Battle of Mühlberg in 1547 was a crushing defeat for John Frederick and the Schmalkaldic League, a Protestant alliance he led against Charles V's Catholic forces. Betrayed by Maurice, who allied with the emperor for the electoral title, John Frederick was wounded, captured, and stripped of his electorship. You can almost smell the gunpowder lingering in the air, can't you? His refusal to renounce Lutheranism, even under threat of execution, made him a symbol of defiance, but it cost him his freedom and his lands. The scar on his face, inflicted during the battle, became a badge of his unyielding faith, though it marked the beginning of his fall. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, consider this. John Frederick, despite the chaos of war, was known for his love of lavish feasts, even on campaign. His cooks once served a roasted stag stuffed with songbirds, a dish so extravagant it took hours to prepare while soldiers starved nearby. You have to laugh. Imagine the cooks, sweating over that absurd feast, while John Frederick planned his next charge. It's the kind of excess that makes you wonder if nobles ever checked their supplies before throwing a banquet. Picture him, raising a goblet of spiced wine, oblivious to the treasury's groans, as if a good meal could win a war. You glide closer, your shadow blending with the mist, the scent of crushed grass and blood faint but persistent. A soldier kneels nearby, binding a wound with a strip of teal cloth torn from a fallen banner. His muttered curses make you smile. Nobles dream of victory, but their men just want a dry bed. A tent flap stirs, revealing a table strewn with maps and a bronze candlestick, its flame flickering as if mourning the day. John Frederick dismounts, his boots sinking into the mud, and you notice a locket at his chest, engraved with a Saxon lion, a callback to the crimson seal in Wittenberg's chamber. His scar twitches as he winces, surveying the wreckage of his army, and you wonder if he's replaying Maurice's betrayal in his mind. The scholarly riddle that haunts this moment is a gripping one. Did John Frederick's courage at Mühlberg make him a hero of the Reformation, or was his refusal to retreat a reckless gamble? Historians debate whether his stand against Charles V, despite overwhelming odds, inspired Protestant resistance or doomed his cause by ignoring Maurice's treachery. Some see him as a martyr, his scar a testament to faith. Others argue his stubbornness handed victory to his enemies. You feel the question's weight as you watch him wipe blood from his blade, the fog curling around him like a shroud. If you were his captain, would you urge him to fight on, or flee to fight another day? As you drift through the battlefield, the air grows colder, the saffron sunrise fading into a gray haze. A broken pike lies half buried in the mud, its splintered wood catching your eye, and you chuckle softly. Nobles love their grand weapons, but they break just like their plans. A soldier stumbles past, carrying a wicker basket of dented helms, his face etched with defeat. You catch a glimpse of a banner, its crimson and gold lion torn, much like John Frederick's hopes. The elector kneels, perhaps in prayer, his scars stark against his pale skin, and you sense the weight of his faith, a flame that burns even as his world collapses. The locket glints again, a reminder of the loyalty he held dear, now shattered by a cousin's ambition. The fog thickens, muffling the sounds of the battlefield, the clink of armor, the groan of the wounded, until only a soft hum remains, like a lullaby for a fallen cause. You glide past a smoldering campfire, its smoke curling like a whispered omen, and smile at the thought of nobles mistaking embers for hope. John Frederick rises, his silhouette towering but weary, and you notice a scroll tucked into his belt, its wax seal cracked. Is it a plea to allies, or a final defiance to Charles V? The battlefield feels like a dream now, its edges blurring, and you wonder if the scar on his face tells a story of valor or folly. As you drift toward the river's edge, the Elbe's murmur soothes you, its waters carrying away the echoes of a noble's defeat. You drift into a dim cell in Worms, the air heavy with the scent of damp stone and flickering tallow, where John Frederick I, once Elector of Saxony, sits in 1547, his broad frame hunched over a worn table. The walls, cold and gray, seem to close in, their shadows cast by a single candle's flame. Yet his eyes burn with a fire no prison can quench. His russet cloak, tattered from the battlefield, recall that scar from Mühlberg, hangs loosely, a relic of his lost power. Outside, the Rhine River murmurs, its sound barely piercing the silence, but you sense a deeper stillness, the weight of a man who chose faith over freedom. These nobles, you think with a wry smile, could turn a cell into a stage. Imagine John Frederick debating theology while the guards roll their eyes. The cell is sparse but not barren, its stone floor scuffed by countless paces, a narrow cot draped with a threadbare blanket in faded teal. A wicker basket by the wall holds a few scrolls, their edges curled like secrets waiting to be read. You notice a bronze candlestick, its wax dripping like tears, and a faint whiff of ink, as if John Frederick has been writing despite his chains. The guards outside, their armor clinking faintly, speak in low tones, their words muffled by the thick oak door. This prison, you realize, is both a cage and a crucible, testing the man who once led Saxony's fight for the Reformation. His scar, now healing but stark, catches the candlelight, a silent testament to his defiance. The historical nugget here is a profound one. After his defeat at Mühlberg in 1547, John Frederick was imprisoned by Emperor Charles V in Worms, facing a death sentence for his leadership of the Schmalkaldic League. Offered freedom in exchange for renouncing Lutheranism, he refused, enduring years of captivity to uphold his faith. You can almost feel the chill of the cell's walls, can't you? His steadfastness made him a hero to Protestants, but it cost him his title, his lands, and nearly his life. The emperor's court, hoping to break him, underestimated his resolve, and his time in Worms became a symbol of unyielding conviction, even as his cousin Maurice reveled in the stolen electoral crown. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, let's talk about John Frederick's peculiar habit of requesting books in prison. Despite his captivity, he demanded volumes of theology and history, turning his cell into a makeshift library. Imagine the guards, grumbling as they hauled heavy tomes through Worms, wondering why a prisoner needed Luther's latest treatise. You have to chuckle. Nobles like John Frederick treated knowledge like gold, even when they couldn't buy a loaf of bread. Picture him, poring over pages by candlelight, as if words could rebuild his lost Saxony. It's the kind of obsession that makes you glad you're just drifting through, not lugging books for a stubborn elector. You glide closer, your shadow mingling with the candle's flicker. A scroll on the table catches your eye, its wax seal broken, perhaps a letter from his wife, Sibylle, or a plea to allies. The ink's scent is sharp, mingling with the musty air, and you notice John Frederick's hand, steady despite his chains, tracing a line of text. His scar twitches as he reads, a reminder of the battlefield's cost. Recall that broken pike in the mud? A guard's cough echoes outside, and you smile softly. Poor man, stuck guarding a prince who'd rather argue scripture than escape. The cell feels smaller now, its walls pressing in, yet John Frederick's presence fills it, his faith a quiet flame that no damp stone can snuff out. The scholarly riddle that lingers is a compelling one. Was John Frederick's refusal to renounce his faith a triumph of principle or a stubborn miscalculation? Historians debate whether his defiance strengthened the Protestant cause by inspiring others or prolonged his suffering needlessly, handing Charles V a propaganda victory. Some see him as a martyr, his cell a shrine to Lutheranism. Others argue his rigidity alienated potential allies who might have saved Saxony. You feel the question's weight as you watch him set down his quill, his gaze fixed on the candle's flame. If you were his confidant, would you praise his resolve or urge him to bend for a chance at freedom? As you drift through the cell, the air grows colder, the tallow's smoky scent curling like a whispered prayer. A faint draft stirs the blanket, revealing a carved wooden cross beneath the cot, and you chuckle quietly. Nobles and their symbols, always finding drama in the smallest things. John Frederick shifts, his chains clinking softly, and you notice a locket at his chest, its Saxon lion glinting, a callback to the crimson seal in Wittenberg's chamber. Is it a gift from Sibylle, or a reminder of the loyalty he lost to Maurice's betrayal? The Rhine's murmur grows louder, a soothing hum that blends with the candle's sputter, as if the river itself mourns his fall. You pause by the door, its oak scarred from years of confinement, and catch a glimpse of a guard polishing his helm, his face bored as if guarding a scholar, not a prince. You stifle a laugh. Imagine the tales he'd tell if he knew the man inside was writing history. The cell's shadows deepen, the candle's light fading, and you feel the scene slipping into a dreamlike haze. John Frederick's hand rests on a book, its pages worn from countless readings, and you wonder if he finds solace in words or merely distraction from his chains. The air softens now, the scent of ink fading into the river's damp breath, and you sense the weight of his faith, a burden heavier than any crown. As you glide toward the door, the guard's armor glints faintly, and you smile at the thought of nobles turning prisons into libraries. Typical, isn't it? They'd rather read than run. The cell's walls seem to sigh, their stones holding the echoes of a man who chose belief over surrender. John Frederick's silhouette blurs, his scar a stark line in the dim light, and you feel the pull of his resolve, like a tide drawing you deeper into this quiet tragedy. As you slip into the night, the Rhine's song grows fainter, carrying away the whispers of a prince whose faith outshone his chains. You drift into a quiet study in Weimar, Thuringia, the air thick with the scent of aged parchment and candle wax, where John Frederick I, no longer elector but still a prince of Saxony, sits surrounded by towering shelves of books. It's 1553, and the man once scarred by battle, recall that jagged mark from Mühlberg, now bears the weight of exile, his russet doublet faded but his spirit unbowed. The room glows with the soft light of a single candelabrum, its flames casting shadows that dance across leather-bound tomes, as if the books themselves whisper tales of defiance. Outside, a winter wind rattles the windows, but here, in this makeshift library, you feel a warmth that defies the cold. These nobles, you think with a wry smile, could turn a prison into a palace. Imagine John Frederick arguing with his books as if they were courtiers. The study is a haven of faded grandeur, its oak shelves sagging under the weight of manuscripts, their pages yellowed like the dreams of a lost electorship. A wicker basket by the desk overflows with letters, their wax seals cracked, bearing the crimson lion of Saxony, a callback to the sealed letter in Wittenberg's chamber. You catch the faint scent of ink, sharp and fresh, as John Frederick dips a quill, his hand steady despite the years of captivity. A velvet curtain in deep indigo hangs by the window, stirring gently, as if guarding secrets from the world outside. The floor creaks under your unseen steps, and you notice a wooden cross carved into the desk, a silent nod to the faith that kept him through Worm's dark days. The historical nugget here is a poignant one. After his release from imprisonment in 1552, John Frederick returned to Thuringia, stripped of his electoral title but determined to preserve his legacy as a Lutheran leader. His library, one of the finest in Germany, became his refuge, filled with theological works, histories, and letters to Protestant allies. You can almost hear the rustle of pages, can't you? He corresponded with reformers like Philip Melanchthon, shaping the Lutheran cause even in exile, while his cousin Maurice, now elector, basked in stolen glory. This study, a sanctuary of intellect, was where John Frederick rebuilt his spirit, proving that a prince's power lies not just in lands but in ideas. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, consider this. John Frederick, even in exile, insisted on commissioning illuminated manuscripts, their margins adorned with gold leaf and tiny Saxon lions. Imagine the scribes, hunched over their work in Weimar's chill, muttering about their lord's obsession with books while creditors knocked. You have to chuckle. Nobles like him spent fortunes on parchment when bread was scarce. Picture him, turning pages with reverence, as if a well-crafted verse could restore his title. It's the kind of extravagance that makes you glad you're just a visitor, not balancing his books. You glide closer, your shadow blending with the candelabrum's glow. A letter on the desk catches your eye, its ink still wet, perhaps a missive to his sons, urging them to carry the Lutheran flame. The scent of wax mingles with the musty air, and you notice a book open to a passage by Luther, its margins marked with John Frederick's notes. A servant enters, carrying a bronze ink pot, nearly tripping over a stack of scrolls, and you stifle a laugh. Poor soul, dodging tomes like they're traps. The room hums with a quiet intensity, as if the books themselves are allies, whispering strategies to a prince who lost his throne but not his purpose. The scholarly riddle that lingers is a fascinating one. Did John Frederick's devotion to his library in exile preserve the Reformation's intellectual heart, or was it a retreat from the fight he could no longer win? Historians debate whether his focus on books and letters strengthened Protestant unity or reflected a man escaping reality after Maurice's betrayal. Some see him as a scholar prince, nurturing the seeds of reform. Others argue he clung to ideals while his enemies reshaped the empire. You feel the question's weight as you watch him trace a line in a book, his scar faintly visible in the candlelight. If you were his scribe, would you praise his wisdom or urge him to take up the sword again? As you drift through the study, the air grows warmer, the scent of parchment softening into a comforting haze. A tapestry on the wall depicts a hunt, its lion echoing the crimson seal from Wittenberg, and you smile at the thought of nobles weaving symbols even in exile. Typical, isn't it? They'd rather craft a myth than a plan. John Frederick sets down his quill, his gaze drifting to the window, where snow dusts the panes like a quiet blessing. You notice a locket at his chest, its Saxon lion glinting, a reminder of the faith that sustained him through Worm's chains. The wind outside howls, but here, the rustle of pages is a lullaby, soothing the scars of a prince in exile. You pause by a shelf, its books leaning like old friends, and catch a glimpse of a servant polishing a silver candlestick, his face weary as if he's tired of noble dreams. You chuckle softly. Imagine serving a lord who'd rather read than rule. The study's glow dims, the candelabram's flames flickering, and you feel the scene slipping into a dreamlike quiet. John Frederick turns another page, his fingers lingering on a passage, and you wonder if he finds solace in words or merely a shield from his losses. The air softens now, the scent of ink fading into the winter's chill, and you sense the weight of his exile, a library built on the ruins of a throne. As you glide toward the door, the wind's howl grows fainter, the snow outside falling like a curtain over Weimer's sorrows. A guard in the hall shifts, his armor clinking, and you smile at the thought of him guarding books instead of gold. Nobles and their priorities. The study's shadows deepen, the books standing sentinel around a prince whose light burns in pages, not power. John Frederick's silhouette blurs, his scar a faint line in the dim light, and you feel the pull of his quiet defiance, like a tide drawing you deeper into this gentle tragedy. As you slip into the night, the snow's soft whisper carries away the echoes of a noble's exile, leaving only the glow of his library's flame. You drift into a candlelit chamber in Weimar, the air heavy with the scent of wax and fading hopes, where John Frederick I, once Elector of Saxony, lies on a simple bed, his face etched with the scars of a life spent in defiance. It's March 1554, and the man who bore the wound of Mühlberg, recall that jagged scar, and the chains of worms now faces his final hour. The room is dim, its walls adorned with faded tapestries of Saxon lions, their crimson threads unraveling like the legacy he fought to preserve. A winter storm howls outside, rattling the windows, but here, in this quiet space, you feel the weight of a life that burned brightly, only to flicker out. These nobles, you think with a wry smile, could turn a deathbed into a drama. Imagine John Frederick dictating his will as if it were a battle plan. The chamber is modest yet steeped in the remnants of nobility, its oak table strewn with letters and a single bronze candlestick, its flame trembling as if aware of the end. A wicker basket by the bed holds a few books, their leather covers worn from years of reading, a callback to the library that sustained him in exile. You catch the faint scent of lavender from a folded cloth, perhaps placed by his wife, Sibylle, whose loyalty outlasted his enemies. John Frederick's russet doublet, now threadbare, lies draped over a chair, and you notice his locket, its Saxon lion glinting faintly, a symbol of the faith that never wavered. The room feels like a sanctuary, yet also a stage, where the final act of a prince's life unfolds in whispers. The historical nugget here is a solemn one. John Frederick died in March 1554, shortly after his release from imprisonment, having lost his electoral title but not his role as a Protestant hero. His death at 50, likely from illness worsened by years of captivity, marked the end of a life dedicated to Lutheranism, leaving his sons to carry on in a diminished Saxony. You can almost hear the wind's mournful howl, can't you? His refusal to renounce his faith, even when it cost him his title and freedom, cemented his legacy as the magnanimous, a prince who sacrificed power for principle. Yet his passing left Thuringia in the shadow of his cousin Maurice's betrayal, a wound as deep as the one on his face. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, let's talk about John Frederick's final indulgence. Even in his last days, he requested a cask of his favorite Saxon beer, brewed with herbs to fortify the spirit. Imagine his servants, scurrying through Weimar's snow to fetch it, muttering about their lord's taste for ale over medicine. You have to chuckle. Nobles like him treated beer like a sacrament, as if a good brew could outweat death. Picture him, raising a goblet with a faint smile, while his physicians shook their heads. It's the kind of excess that makes you glad you're just drifting through, not nursing a prince's whims. You glide closer, your shadow blending with the candle's glow. A letter on the table catches your eye, its wax seal cracked, perhaps a final message to his sons, urging them to uphold the Lutheran cause. The scent of ink lingers, sharp and bittersweet, and you notice a book by Luther, its pages open to a marked passage, as if John Frederick sought one last lesson. A servant enters, carrying a silver tray with a single goblet, nearly spilling it, and you stifle a laugh. Poor soul, serving a dying prince while dodging his books. The room hums with a quiet reverence, the tapestry's lions watching like silent guardians, their crimson faded but proud. The scholarly riddle that lingers is a haunting one. Did John Frederick's sacrifices forge a lasting Protestant legacy, or did his losses weaken the Reformation's cause? Historians debate whether his unyielding faith inspired generations or left Saxony vulnerable to Catholic resurgence under Maurice's rule. Some see him as a martyr whose defiance strengthened Lutheranism. Others argue his stubbornness cost the Protestant alliance a powerful leader. You feel the question's weight as you watch him adjust his locket, his scarf faintly visible in the candlelight. If you were his heir, would you honor his sacrifice or seek a path of compromise? As you drift through the chamber, the air grows softer, the scent of lavender mingling with the storm's damp breath. A tapestry flutters, its lion echoing the crimson seal from Wittenberg's chamber, and you smile at the thought of nobles clinging to symbols even at the end. Typical, isn't it? They'd rather weave a legend than a shroud. John Frederick's breathing slows, his hand resting on the book, and you wonder if he sees his life, battles, betrayals, books, as a triumph or a tragedy. A guard outside shifts, his armor clinking faintly, and you chuckle softly. Imagine guarding a prince whose real battle was with his soul. The candle's flame wavers, casting long shadows that seem to cradle the room in a gentle embrace. You pause by the window, the snow outside falling like a quiet requiem, its flakes catching the candlelight like stars. The storm's howl fades, leaving only the soft creak of the bed and the rustle of pages, a lullaby for a fading prince. John Frederick's silhouette blurs, his scar a faint line in the dim light, and you feel the pull of his legacy, like a tide drawing you deeper into this solemn scene. As you glide toward the door, the scent of wax fades, the lion on the locket glinting one last time, a reminder of a man whose generosity outlived his power. The chamber's glow dims, and you slip into the night, the snow's whisper carrying away the echoes of a noble sacrifice. You drift from the chamber, the candle's glow fading into a soft, endless void, where the scent of lavender and wax dissolves into a gentle breeze. The Saxon lions, the clink of goblets, the rustle of manuscripts, all fade, like snow melting into a quiet stream. You're floating now, weightless, as the stars above Weimar blur into a soothing shimmer, their light a whispered promise of rest. John Frederick's battles, his betrayals, his books, they slip away, leaving only the hum of a winter's night. Share your thoughts below, and let the silence carry you to slumber. Subscribe to Dark Lens Stories for more tales of noble shadows. Next, a Renaissance duke's enigmatic fall.